It's the brightest object in the night sky, and it has been a fascination for human beings, basically for as long as we've existed. Now, although this object can be quite a nuisance to work with if you're a deep space astrophotographer trying to minimize the light pollution, however, I'm sure most of you got your start in astrophotography taking images of this object. And for me personally, I like to look at it every once in a while just to see how things are going on up there. So come along for another astrophotography imaging session as I photograph the Earth's closest neighbor and solo satellite, the Moon. My name is Kwesi Akwa, and welcome to the Astropark. The Moon orbits at an average distance of 238,900 miles, about 30 times the diameter of Earth. Tidal forces between Earth and the Moon have over time synchronized the Moon's orbital period with its rotation period at 29.5 Earth days, causing the same side of the Moon to always face Earth. The lunar surface is covered in lunar dust and marked by mountains and various impact craters. The Moon has been an important source of inspiration and knowledge for humans, having been crucial to cosmography, mythology, religion, art, timekeeping, natural science, and space flight. In 1959, the first probe to reach the Moon was Luna 1 from the Soviet Union. On July 20th, 1969, humans landed on the Moon for the first time in the Sea of Tranquility during the Apollo 11 mission. 5 more Apollo missions were completed between 1969 and 1972. Since then, exploration of the Moon has continued robotically, and crewed missions are being planned to return beginning in the late 2020s. So to photograph the Moon, I'll be using the Orion Eon 104 EDX2 Triplet Apochromatic Refractor telescope. And for this session, I'll be using 2 different cameras. The first camera will take full disk images of the Moon, and I'll simply be using the camera on the back of my smartphone. And the second camera to take up-close images of the lunar surface, I'll be using the ZWO ASI 224 MC, a one-shot color solar system webcam. And attached to the barrel of the 224 will be the Optolong UV IR cut filter to help with the sharpening and contrast details. And all of this will be mounted on top of the Orion Atlas Pro AZ EQG. So, with all that being said, let's head outside, take a walk in the park, and get everything set up for tonight's imaging session of the Moon. So to take the full disk images of the moon, I'll be using a method known as Eyepiece Projection, where I have my smartphone attached to a telescope eyepiece. And this is a simple and effective way of getting started in astrophotography as a beginner. So basically how this method works is you have your smartphone attached to a smartphone camera adapter, and then the adapter attaches to the eyepiece on the other end, and it's lined up with the camera lens on the back of your phone. So once you have that set up, you can go to the Pro mode in your smartphone settings, where you can adjust the ISO, shutter speed, manual focus, and white balance levels. And then once you have it set up to your settings, I like to do a 5-second delay timer. So it's going to wait 5 seconds for any vibrations to settle down, and then it will take the image. So I can press this white button. It'll count down for 5. And that's it. That's all there is to it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I've swapped over to the ZWO ASI 224 MC, and I'm beginning to take my images of the up-close features of the moon. However, I want to take a quick moment to talk about the different phases of the moon. So every month, the moon goes through a cycle of phases of increasing illumination up to 100%, followed by a decrease in illumination back to 0%. So when the illumination is increasing, this is known as waxing, whereas if it's decreasing, this is known as waning. And the moon goes through a series of 8 different phases, starting with the new moon, waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning gibbous, last quarter, and waning crescent, and then back to the new moon. And it repeats this cycle every month. Now, you can take images of the moon at any phase where you can see some illumination. However, for me personally, I like to take pictures of the moon during the quarter and gibbous phases, because during these phases we can see a feature on the moon known as the Terminator.
I'll be back.
No, not that Terminator. The Terminator I'm referring to is the dividing line that separates the light side from the dark side. No, not that light and dark side. Perhaps it would be easier if I just showed you what I'm referring to. So let's take a look at some video data that I captured earlier in August during the first quarter. Okay, so here's some video footage I was able to capture of the first quarter moon that occurred on August 14th. And you can see the Terminator near the bottom left-hand portion of the screen. So it's that dividing barrier that separates the part in the shadows from the part that's illuminated by the sunlight. So the cool thing about the Terminator is if you follow along its path, you can see some lunar details that are enhanced even further. So for example, this crater right here, this is Copernicus crater. And if the Terminator lies on a crater or is really close by, you can see that it gives the crater a sense of depth. Whereas if the Terminator hits a mountain range, say these mountains in the upper left-hand corner here, then it gives the mountains a sense of height. So it adds that extra dimension of details, which I think is really cool. And you can see the Terminator at any phase in between the new moon and the full moon. So that includes all of the crescent phases, quarter phases, and gibbous phases. So I'd highly encourage you to try this out for yourself. And if you can see that the Terminator gives some of these craters and mountains a sense of depth and height and that extra layer of detail, I'm sure you'll have a deeper appreciation for these lunar features. Okay, so we're looking at a live view of the up-close features on the moon. And as you can see, the lunar surface is covered with thousands upon thousands of different crater impacts. And some of the larger craters, you can see impact lines that are emanating from the impact zone, which I think is pretty neat. You can also see some of the dark gray features on the lunar surface. These features are called the mare, which is Latin for the seas, because when the moon was first forming, it did have some volcanic activity, and the mare are basically lava flows that cooled over a long period of time. And a great resource I like to use when trying to identify these features is by using what's known as a moon atlas or a moon map. And these maps have a list of every feature that you can identify on the lunar surface, as well as their names. So it's a great resource to have in your arsenal when you're trying to learn new material. So I've already taken a few video files thus far, and I'm going to add a 2 times Barlow lens to the system to get a little bit closer to some of these features. So I'll be recording some additional videos, and as usual, we'll just see how the night progresses. There's some interesting astronomical events that you can see with the moon. Have you noticed that some full moons are slightly brighter than others? These particular full moons are called supermoons. A supermoon occurs when the moon is at its closest distance to the Earth in its orbit, known as perigee. This causes the moon to appear slightly larger and brighter in the night sky. You may also see a blue moon, which is the second full moon in a single month, or the third full moon in a single season. The moon also plays a role in eclipses, which includes a lunar eclipse, where the moon is covered in the Earth's shadow, giving the moon a red color, and a solar eclipse, where the moon's shadow covers a small portion of the Earth. However, the moon is moving away from the Earth by a couple of centimeters every year. So one day, millions of years from now, total solar eclipses will no longer be possible, and we'll only be able to see annular solar eclipses. The full moons of each month also have special names listed in the Farmer's Almanac. For example, the full moon in August is referred to as the sturgeon moon. This is because the sturgeon fish located in the Great Lakes were said to be abundantly caught by fishermen during this full moon. For the first time in over 50 years, NASA will be sending humans back to the moon with the Artemis program. Artemis will explore the polar regions of the moon, searching for water ice formations in the craters, as well as lay down the groundwork for long-term outposts on the lunar surface. Artemis 1 launched in November 2022, making its successful test flight of the SLS launch vehicle. Artemis 2 will be the first crewed mission and will carry astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen in orbit around the moon. Artemis 2 is scheduled to launch no earlier than September 2025. Also, did you know that you can participate in moon science? International Observe the Moon Night is an annual event that takes place in September or October, where people from around the world come together to celebrate the moon in their own unique way. I personally like to host an event with my close group of friends and watch a moon-themed program or movie. Then at night, I set up my telescope for everyone to take a look at the moon, as well as other bright objects that are visible. So, how will you celebrate the moon? Be sure to partake in the festivities as we celebrate International Observe the Moon Night 2024 on September 14th. Hey everyone, so I was able to complete my video captures and I'm getting ready to pack everything up and head back home. I had a lot of fun observing and imaging this special full moon tonight. Now, I understand the moon can be rather annoying to deal with when you're trying to image broadband deep space objects. However, the moon is vital for all of our lives on Earth. So, whenever you have a free moment, I would encourage you to take some time to look up and admire its vast wonders. So, as always, thank you for watching AstroPark. Please enjoy the images of the up-close features of the moon, as well as the full disk image of the super blue sturgeon moon at the end of this video. It's a mouthful, I know. And until next time, take care, and I wish you all clear skies.